You need to step aside and wait in the hall. The lounge is for premium members only, not for support staff." Those were the last words Preston Sterling ever said with a smile on his face. He didn't know that the woman in the faded hoodie standing in front of him wasn't looking for a job. She was looking for a reason. He didn't know that the phone in her pocket was dialing the private line of the airline's chairman. And he certainly didn't know that in exactly 5 minutes, he wouldn't just be unemployed. He would become the centerpiece of the most brutal corporate takeover in aviation history. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. The automatic doors of JFK Terminal 4 slid open, blasting Sabrina Jenkins with a gust of recycled air conditioning that smelled faintly of floor wax and stale coffee. She adjusted the strap of her canvas messenger bag, pulling her oversized grey hoodie tighter around her frame. To the untrained eye, Sabrina looked like an exhausted graduate student, or perhaps a tired mother trying to catch a red-eye flight home to visit family. She wore no jewelry. Her sneakers were worn-in Nikes, and her hair was pulled back into a messy, functional bun. There were no diamonds on her fingers, no Gucci logo on her chest, and certainly no entourage clearing a path for her. That was exactly how she liked it. At 34 years old, Sabrina Jenkins was the majority shareholder and CEO of Apex Logistics, a supply chain behemoth that had recently acquired 2 mid-sized tech firms in Silicon Valley. Her net worth hovered somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.2 billion, depending on how the market closed on any given Tuesday. Just last week, she had been photographed dining with heavy hitters like Satya Nadella and giving a keynote speech alongside Ursula Burns. But here, amidst the chaos of holiday travel, she was invisible. She checked her phone, a text from David, her chief of staff. "Boarding for flight 882 to London. Starts in 40 mins. The acquisition papers are in your secure folder. Don't sign until we get the concession on the fuel surcharge." Sabrina tapped back. On it, going to the lounge to review the docs. Silence is golden. She wasn't flying private today. The company jet was currently in for maintenance in Teterboro, and Sabrina, pragmatic to a fault, refused to delay the meeting with the British Regulatory Board. Commercial first class on Regal Atlantic Airlines was perfectly fine. She actually preferred it sometimes. It kept her grounded. She navigated the sea of travelers, dodging a family with 4 screaming toddlers and a businessman shouting into his Bluetooth earpiece about Q3 deliverables. She made her way toward the Regal Atlantic first-class lounge, an exclusive enclave known for its velvet ropes, champagne on tap, and notoriously snobbish staff. As she approached the frosted glass doors, she felt a familiar knot of tension. It wasn't anxiety about business. Sabrina could eat shark investors for breakfast. It was the social anxiety of existing as a black woman in spaces that weren't built for her, often guarded by people who decided within 3 seconds whether she belonged. She shook it off. "I own the ticket. I earned the seat," she reminded herself. The entrance to the lounge was guarded by a podium made of polished mahogany. Behind it stood a man who looked like he had been manufactured in a factory that specialized in arrogance. His name tag read, Preston Sterling. He was tall, blonde, with a jawline that could cut glass, and a suit that was tailored a little too tightly. He was typing furiously on a computer, ignoring the line of 3 people waiting. When he finally looked up, he flashed a charming, practiced smile at the older white couple in front of Sabrina. "Mr. and Mrs. van der Hoven," Preston purred, his voice dripping with faux hospitality. "Always a pleasure. I see we have your usual scotch waiting in the private alcove. Right this way." He ushered them through, bowing slightly. Sabrina stepped up to the podium. She placed her phone, displaying her digital boarding pass, on the scanner. Preston didn't look at the scanner. He didn't look at the screen. He looked at Sabrina's hoodie. Then he looked at her sneakers. Finally, his eyes landed on her face, and the professional smile vanished, replaced by a look of profound annoyance. "Deliveries are at the back entrance, near gate B12, Preston said, his voice flat. He immediately looked back down at his keyboard, dismissing her entirely. Sabrina blinked. She hadn't spoken a word yet. "Excuse me?" Preston sighed, a loud, theatrical exhalation of breath that signaled he was dealing with an idiot. He looked up again, his eyes narrowing. "The food court deliveries or janitorial staff check-in? Whatever you're here for, this is the first-class lounge. Staff entrance is downstairs." Sabrina felt the heat rise up her neck. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but it never got less stinging. She kept her voice calm, modulated, the same voice she used when negotiating billion-dollar mergers. "I'm not staff, Preston," she said, reading his name tag deliberately. "I'm a passenger on Flight 882 to Heathrow. I have a first-class ticket." She tapped her phone screen, which was clearly displaying the QR code and the bold letters "First Class." Preston didn't even glance at the phone. He actually chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Look, miss, I don't know who you are or how you got that screenshot, probably a glitch or a forwarded pass, but we have a dress code here, and we have a clientele standard." He leaned over the podium, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Economy boarding is at the gate. If you hurry, you might find overhead bin space, but you can't stand here blocking the entrance for our actual members." "Scan the pass," Sabrina said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming colder. "Just scan the code, Preston. If it's invalid, I'll walk away." Preston stared at her. For a second, he looked like he might do it. But then, a group of businessmen in Italian suits approached behind Sabrina. Preston's demeanor shifted instantly back to the sycophantic servant. He looked at Sabrina with pure disdain. "I am not going to waste my time scanning a fake pass while VIPs are waiting. Step aside." "I am a VIP," Sabrina stated, not moving an inch. "Security," Preston called out, not loudly, but firmly into his headset. He looked at Sabrina with a smirk. "Last chance. Walk away, or I have you escorted out for causing a disturbance." Sabrina stared at him. She memorized his face. She memorized the time, 2:49 p.m. She memorized the way he smoothed his tie, smug in his petty power. "You're making a mistake," Sabrina said softly. "The only mistake," Preston sneered, "was thinking you could hustle me. Move." Sabrina stepped to the side, but she didn't leave. She stood just 3 feet away, leaning against a pillar, watching. Preston turned his million-watt smile to the businessman behind her. "Gentlemen, so sorry for the delay. Just handling some riffraff. Please come in. Champagne?" As the businessmen chuckled and walked past her, one of them bumped Sabrina's shoulder and didn't apologize. Sabrina didn't flinch. She unlocked her phone. She didn't open Instagram. She didn't open Twitter. She opened the Contacts app. She scrolled past Mom and David until she found a name that very few people in the world had in their personal cell phone. Richard Branson. Well, not Branson himself. He was retired from the day-to-day. But she had the number for Jonathan Harker, the global director of operations for Regal Atlantic. They had served on a charity board together in Zurich 2 years ago. She hit call. The phone rang 3 times. While it rang, Sabrina watched Preston. He was in his element. He was laughing at a joke a tall man in a navy suit made, pouring a glass of water with a flourish. He looked like a king in his little castle of mahogany and glass. He had no idea that the girl in the hoodie, standing 5 feet away, was about to bring the castle down. "Sabrina?" The voice on the other end was breathless. Sabrina Jenkins. My God, I haven't heard from you since the Davos summit. Is everything all right? Hello, Jonathan, Sabrina said, turning her back to Preston so he wouldn't hear. I'm actually at JFK right now, flying Regal Atlantic to London. Fantastic. Are they treating you well? I can flag the crew to have a special vintage opened for you. That won't be necessary, Sabrina said, her voice icy smooth. Because I can't even get into the lounge. There was a pause on the line. I'm sorry, the lounge is full. No, Sabrina said, glancing over her shoulder. Preston was now berating a junior staff member for not polishing the glasses correctly. The lounge isn't full, but your manager, a Mr. Preston Sterling, has informed me that I am riff-raff and that I should use the delivery entrance. He refused to scan my ticket. What? Jonathan's voice dropped. The warmth was gone, replaced by the sharp edge of a corporate executioner. Did you tell him who you are? I shouldn't have to, Jonathan. That's the point. Jesus Christ, Jonathan muttered. Sabrina put him on the phone. No, Sabrina said. I don't want to talk to him, and I don't want you to talk to him. Not yet. She watched as Preston turned his attention back to the line. A young black family was approaching, a father, mother, and a little girl holding a teddy bear. They were well dressed, clearly excited for a trip. Sabrina saw Preston's eyes narrow again. She saw the pattern. This wasn't just about her hoodie. This was systemic. Jonathan, Sabrina said, is Regal Atlantic still looking for a buyer for the North American Ground Operations Division? I recall reading in the Financial Times that your Q4 earnings were struggling due to management inefficiencies. Sabrina, we are, but why? I want to buy it. Excuse me? Jonathan sounded like he had choked on his coffee. The North American Division? That's a $600 million portfolio. I know the valuation. I can have a letter of intent wired to your legal team in 10 minutes. My firm, Apex, has been looking to expand into commercial aviation hospitality. But I have one condition. Which is? I want full operational control effective immediately, specifically over JFK personnel. Jonathan was silent for a long moment. He was a businessman. He knew Sabrina Jenkins didn't bluff. He also knew that Regal Atlantic was bleeding cash and desperate for a liquidity injection. Selling the ground ops to Apex would save the quarter. It would save the CEO's job. Sabrina, are you serious? You're buying a division of an airline because a manager was rude to you? He wasn't just rude, Jonathan. He's a liability, and he's about to cost you a lot more than a lawsuit. Sabrina watched as Preston stopped the young family. She could hear him saying, "We are at capacity right now. You'll have to wait." It was a lie. Sabrina could see through the glass. The lounge was half empty. Do we have a deal, Jonathan? I'll offer 5% above market value if you authorize the transfer of authority to me via email right now. I have to call the chairman. Give me 5 minutes. You have 3, Sabrina said. She hung up. Sabrina walked back toward the podium. Preston was currently blocking the path of the father, holding the little girl's hand. I don't see a reservation in the primary system. Preston was lying through his teeth. You need to step aside and wait in the hall. I'll call you if space opens up. It could be an hour. But we have first-class tickets, the father pleaded, holding up printed papers. And my daughter needs to use the restroom. There are restrooms in the main terminal, Preston said dismissively, pointing vaguely away. Wait outside. 5 minutes. Maybe 10. Don't crowd the entrance. The father looked defeated. He began to turn away. Sabrina stepped in. Don't move, Sabrina said to the father. She looked at Preston. You're lying to them. The lounge is at 40% capacity. I can see the empty seats from here." Preston's face turned a brilliant shade of red. He slammed his hand on the podium. "You again. I thought I told you to leave. That's it. I'm calling the police." He grabbed the landline phone on his desk. "Go ahead," Sabrina said, crossing her arms. "Call them. But before you do, you might want to check your internal email." "I don't have time for your delusions," Preston yelled, attracting the attention of everyone in the vicinity. Travelers stopped. The businessmen inside the lounge looked through the glass. "You are harassment. You are trespassing." Ding. A notification sound echoed from Preston's computer. It was the specific, jarring chime of a Priority 1 corporate alert. It was a sound reserved for terrorist threats, plane crashes, or direct orders from the board of directors. Preston froze. His hand hovered over the phone. He looked at the screen. Then a second ding. Then a third. Sabrina's phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. "It's done. The board approved the emergency liquid asset transfer. Welcome to the team, Sabrina. The firing codes are authorized." Sabrina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. "You might want to read that, Preston," Sabrina said softly. Preston looked at the computer screen. His eyes widened. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He scrolled down. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and scrolled again. The subject line of the email, visible even to Sabrina from where she stood, read, "Urgent. Immediate transfer of ownership. JFK ground operations." What is this?" Preston whispered. "Read the second paragraph," Sabrina commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried such authority that the father and mother next to her straightened their spines. Preston read it. His skin, previously flushed with anger, turned a sickly, pale grey. He looked up at Sabrina. He looked at her hoodie. He looked at her sneakers. And for the first time, he really saw her. "Ms. Jenkins," he choked out. "That's Miss Jenkins Sterling to you," Sabrina said, then paused. "Oh, wait. No, it's just Ms. Jenkins, because I don't share my name with employees who abuse their power." Sabrina stepped forward, entering the staff-only space behind the podium. Preston scrambled back as if she were radioactive. "You told me to wait outside," Sabrina said, her voice projecting so the entire crowd could hear. "You told this family to wait outside. You decided that because of how we look, or who you think we are, we didn't belong in your kingdom." She reached past him and grabbed the PA system microphone, the one used to make announcements to the lounge. She clicked the button. "Attention everyone in the Aurora Lounge," Sabrina's voice boomed through the speakers inside the glass. The businessmen, the staff, the travelers all stopped and looked at the entrance. "My name is Sabrina Jenkins. I am the CEO of Apex Logistics, and as of 3 minutes ago, the new owner of Regal Atlantic's JFK ground operations." You could hear a pin drop in the terminal. "I apologize for the disturbance," Sabrina continued, her eyes locked on Preston's trembling figure. "We are undergoing a sudden management restructuring. Specifically, we are removing the trash." She released the button and looked at Preston. "Preston Sterling," Sabrina said. "You're fired." Preston stammered. You can't. I have seniority. I have. The union will—" "I didn't just fire you, Preston," Sabrina said, leaning in close. "I bought the contract. I own the non-compete clauses. And I am going to make sure that every airline, every hotel, and every hospitality group from here to Tokyo knows exactly why you were let go. You won't be managing a lounge. You'll be lucky to manage a fryer at a fast food chain." She pointed to the exit. "Now," she whispered. "Wait outside." Preston looked around. The security guard he had threatened to call was standing there, arms crossed, smirking. The staff inside the lounge were watching, some hiding smiles. The family he had snubbed was staring at him. He gathered his phone, his keys, and walked out from behind the podium. The walk of shame was long. As he passed the automatic doors, the cold wind hit him. Sabrina turned to the family. She smiled, a genuine warm smile this time. "I am so sorry for the delay," she said. "Please go in, and tell the bartender to put your drinks on my personal tab." She scanned her own phone. Beep. Green light. Sabrina walked into the lounge, the automatic doors sliding shut behind her, leaving Preston Sterling standing alone on the curb. But the story didn't end there. Because Preston Sterling wasn't the type of man to go down quietly. He was about to make the worst decision of his life. He was getting on that plane, too. The walk from the lounge to gate B12 was a blur of neon duty-free signs and rushing travelers. But for Sabrina Jenkins, it was the calm before the second storm. She knew men like Preston Sterling. They didn't accept defeat. They viewed it as a temporary glitch in the matrix of their privilege. He wouldn't just go home. He would try to burn the house down on his way out. Sabrina arrived at the gate. The boarding area for Flight 882 to London Heathrow was chaotic. It was a full flight, a massive Boeing 777, sitting heavy on the tarmac outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. And there, standing behind the boarding desk, was Preston Sterling. He wasn't wearing his blazer anymore. He had loosened his tie, looking frantic but determined. He was whispering aggressively to the gate manager, a heavy-set man named Greg Thomas. Greg looked like the kind of bureaucrat who enjoyed denying people things: extra legroom, upgrades, basic dignity. Sabrina observed them from behind a pillar near the window. Preston was pointing at her as she approached, his face twisted in a sneer. He was clearly spinning a narrative. Sabrina stepped into the priority boarding lane. "Stop right there," Greg Thomas barked, holding up a hand. He didn't even look at her boarding pass. "We have a security flag on your reservation." Sabrina sighed. She stopped, resting her hand on her messenger bag. "Is that so, Greg? Because my app shows boarding in green letters. And considering I own the ground operations company that employs the check-in staff, I'd assume my clearance is higher than yours." Greg laughed. It was a wet, unpleasant sound. "Preston told me about your little stunt at the lounge, hacking our system, claiming to buy the division. Listen, lady, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but the police are on their way." "The police aren't coming, Greg," Sabrina said calmly, "because there is no crime. But there is a very serious obstruction of a priority passenger happening right now." Preston stepped out from behind Greg, looking smug. "I checked the manifesto, Sabrina, or whatever your name is. The system hasn't updated. Technically, Regal Atlantic still signs my paycheck until the paperwork clears in London. That means for the next 7 hours, I am still the senior lounge director, and I am traveling on this flight for corporate business, and I am designating you as a non-compliant passenger." He crossed his arms. "That means you don't fly. You can take the bus." The passengers behind Sabrina began to grumble. A business traveler checked his watch. "Come on, let her on, we're going to be late." "Quiet," Greg shouted at the passengers. "We are handling a security threat." Sabrina looked at Greg, then at Preston. "So, let me get this straight. You, Preston, are using a cancelled employee status to leverage a favor from your friend Greg to deny a first-class passenger boarding based on a personal vendetta." "I'm denying you because you're a fraud," Preston spat. "And Greg here runs the gate. What he says goes. You're not getting on my plane." "Your plane?" Sabrina raised an eyebrow. She pulled out her phone again. She didn't call Jonathan Harker this time. She called the Airport Master Control Center. "Yes, this is Sabrina Jenkins. ID code Alpha 9 Zulu Apex. I have a code red personnel issue at gate B12. I need the Port Authority supervisor and the station manager down here. Now." She hung up and looked at Greg. "You have exactly 2 minutes to scan my pass, Greg. If the station manager gets here before I'm on that jet bridge, you lose your pension. And I know you're 2 years away from retirement." Greg's eyes flickered. Uncertainty crept in. He looked at Preston. "Preston, is she for real? She has an Alpha code." "She's bluffing," Preston screamed, losing his composure. "She's a nobody in a hoodie. Look at her. Does she look like she has an Alpha code?" "Appearances are deceiving, gentlemen," Sabrina said, stepping forward. She held her phone out to the scanner. "Scan it." Greg hesitated. The pressure from the line of passengers was mounting. The board light on the scanner was blinking invitingly. "Don't do it, Greg," Preston warned. "If she gets on, she ruins everything. She'll file complaints. I'll fire you both," Sabrina corrected. "Actually, I already fired Preston. Greg, you're currently auditing for a termination." Sweat beaded on Greg's forehead. He looked at the angry Preston, then at the calm, terrifyingly confident Sabrina. He looked at the line of angry passengers. Beep. Greg scanned the phone. The machine let out a happy chirp. A green light flashed. The small printer spat out a seat assignment slip, 1A. "Thank you, Greg," Sabrina said, snatching the slip. "We'll discuss your performance review when I land in London." She walked past the desk. As she entered the jet bridge, she heard Preston screaming, "I'm coming too! I have a staff ticket! You can't stop me! Greg, scan my pass!" Sabrina didn't look back. She walked down the long, sloping tunnel toward the aircraft. She had won the battle at the gate, but she knew Preston was right about one thing. He had a ticket. And once those cabin doors closed, the laws of the ground didn't always apply in the sky. She was walking into a metal tube at 30,000 feet with a desperate man. The first-class cabin of the Regal Atlantic 777 was a sanctuary of cream-colored leather and walnut wood trim. There were only 8 suites, arranged in a private chevron pattern. Sabrina located Suite 1A, stowed her canvas bag, and sank into the wide seat. A flight attendant appeared instantly with a glass of champagne. "Welcome aboard, Miss Jenkins. Pajamas?" "Please," Sabrina said, taking the glass. She needed a moment to decompress. She closed her eyes, listening to the hum of the APU and the distant thud of luggage being loaded. She thought it was over. Then she heard the commotion. "I don't care what the manifest says, Monica. She is a threat to this airline." Sabrina opened her eyes. Preston Sterling was marching down the aisle of the first-class cabin. He wasn't in a suit anymore. He had taken off his tie and looked disheveled, manic. He was trailing behind a tall, severe-looking woman in the immaculate red uniform of the in-flight director. This was Monica St. James. She was legendary at Regal Atlantic, known as the Dragon of the Skies. She managed the cabin crew with an iron fist, and she was rumored to be untouchable because she knew where all the executive skeletons were buried. And apparently, she was Preston's close personal friend. Monica stopped at Suite 1A. She looked down at Sabrina with a gaze that could freeze boiling water. "Miss Jenkins," Monica said. Her voice was clipped, British, and dripping with condescension. "Miss St. James," Sabrina replied, taking a sip of champagne. "Is there a problem?" "There is," Monica said. She gestured to Preston, who was standing in the galley, glaring at Sabrina. "Mr. Sterling has informed me of the irregularities regarding your ticket acquisition." "I bought the ticket," Sabrina said. "And then I bought the ground operations company. I assume the pilot has the updated manifest." "The captain is busy with pre-flight checks," Monica snapped. "I run the cabin, and in my cabin, we do not tolerate passengers who harass senior staff." "Harass?" Sabrina laughed, a genuine, incredulous laugh. He refused to let me into the lounge because of my hoodie. Then he tried to block me at the gate. Now he's following me onto the plane. I'd say I'm the one being harassed." Monica leaned in, placing a hand on Sabrina's sweet wall. It was an invasion of space, a power move. "Listen to me." Monica lowered her voice. "Preston is a colleague. You are a passenger. I don't care if you think you bought the airport. Up here, my word is law. And I have decided that your presence in first class is disruptive." "Is that so?" Sabrina challenged. "Yes. We have a technical issue with this seat. The recline function is broken." Monica lied smoothly. "Mr. Sterling, however, is a staff member traveling on critical business. He needs a workspace. You will switch seats with him." Sabrina stared at her. "You want me to switch seats with the man I just fired?" "He is not fired until HR processes it in London," Monica said. "Now, he is in economy seat 42J. You will take his seat. He will take yours. If you refuse, I will have the Port Authority remove you for failure to comply with crew instructions." It was the ultimate trump card. In the post-9/11 world, failure to comply was a one-way ticket to a jail cell and a no-fly list. Monica knew exactly how to weaponize the rules. Preston walked over, a triumphant smirk plastering his face. "You heard her, Sabrina? Move. 42J is a middle seat, by the way, near the toilets." Sabrina looked at the champagne glass. She set it down gently. "Monica," Sabrina said, her voice deadly quiet, "you are making a career-ending mistake. I suggest you go to the cockpit and check your messages via ACARS. There should be a message from the chairman." "I don't check messages until we are airborne," Monica scoffed. "And I don't take orders from passengers. Pack your bag, now." She snapped her fingers. 2 other flight attendants appeared behind her, looking uncomfortable but obedient. Sabrina stood up. "Fine," Sabrina said. Preston let out a loud, barking laugh. "That's what I thought. Back of the bus. Go on, wait outside." Sabrina grabbed her canvas bag. She walked out of the suite, but she didn't turn right toward economy. She turned left toward the cockpit door. "Hey!" Monica shouted. "Where do you think you're going? You can't go in there." Monica grabbed Sabrina's arm. That was the breaking point. Sabrina spun around, pulling her arm free with a force that made Monica stumble back. "Don't touch me." Sabrina's voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a command that shook the cabin walls. "Captain Miller!" Sabrina shouted at the reinforced cockpit door. "Captain Robert Miller! This is Sabrina Jenkins! Authorization code Black 01. Open this door!" The cabin went silent. Preston looked confused. "Code Black? What is she talking about?" Monica looked furious. "She's insane! Restrain her!" Monica lunged for the cockpit phone to call security, but before she could lift the receiver, the locks on the cockpit door clicked. Thunk! Click! The door swung open. Captain Robert Miller, a silver-haired veteran pilot with 4 stripes on his shoulders, stepped out. He looked annoyed, holding a printed telex paper in his hand. "What in God's name is going on back here?" Captain Miller boomed. "I'm trying to initialize the flight computer and my printer is going haywire with messages from headquarters." He looked at Monica. Then he looked at Preston. Finally, he looked at Sabrina. He froze. He looked at the paper in his hand, then back at Sabrina. "Ms. Jenkins?" the captain asked, his tone shifting from annoyance to shock. "Captain," Sabrina said, adjusting her hoodie. "I apologize for the interruption, but your in-flight director and this former employee," she pointed at Preston, "are attempting to force me into economy and remove me from my paid seat. They have also physically assaulted me." Captain Miller turned to Monica. His face was pale. "Monica," the captain said slowly. "Did you tell Ms. Jenkins to move?" "She's disruptive, Bob," Monica pleaded, sensing the shift in power but not understanding the magnitude. "Preston needs the seat. It's protocol." Captain Miller held up the paper. "Monica," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I just received a direct order from the board of directors. It says that Apex Logistics has acquired a controlling stake in the North American operations. It also says that Sabrina Jenkins has been appointed as the acting executive auditor for this flight." Monica's mouth fell open. "Auditor?" Preston squeaked. "It means," Sabrina said, stepping toward Monica, "that for the duration of this flight, I am your boss. Not the ground team. Not the London office. Me." Sabrina turned to the captain. "Captain Miller, I don't want to delay this flight. We have a schedule to keep. But I cannot have a mutinous crew. Is there a relief crew available?" "No, ma'am," Captain Miller said. "If we remove them, we cancel the flight." Sabrina nodded. She looked at Monica, then at Preston. She looked at the luxury of the first-class cabin. "Preston," Sabrina said. "You wanted a seat in first class?" Preston nodded, hope flaring in his eyes. Yes, I did." "Good. You can sit there." She pointed to Suite 1A. Preston blinked. "Really?" "Yes." "Sit down." Preston, confused but relieved, rushed to the seat and sat down. He looked at Monica. "Like, see? We won." "However," Sabrina continued, turning to Monica, "Monica, you are relieved of duty as in-flight director, effective immediately. You are stripped of your rank." "You can't do that," Monica shrieked. "I just did. You will not serve a single drink. You will not make a single announcement. You will sit in the galley jump seat for 7 hours and think about your resignation letter." Sabrina turned back to Preston, who was getting comfortable in the leather chair. "And Preston," Sabrina smiled, "I said you could sit there. I didn't say you could stay there." She looked at the captain. "Captain, I am declaring Preston Sterling a security risk. He has been harassing passengers and impersonating active staff. I want him removed from the aircraft." "But you just told me to sit," Preston stammered. "I wanted to see if you were arrogant enough to take the seat," Sabrina said. "You were, which proves you haven't learned a thing." She looked at the open aircraft door where the jet bridge was still connected. 2 Port Authority police officers were now standing there, looking for the source of the trouble. Sabrina pointed at Preston. "Officers, that man is trespassing." The officers marched into the first-class cabin. "No! No!" Preston grabbed the armrests. "I have a ticket! Monica, tell them!" Monica said nothing. She was staring at the floor, realizing her career was over. The officers grabbed Preston. He kicked and screamed as they dragged him out of the plush leather seat. "You can't do this! Do you know who I am?" "We know who you are," Sabrina said calmly as he was dragged past her. "You're the guy who should have waited outside." Preston was hauled off the plane, his screams echoing down the jet bridge. Sabrina turned to the stunned cabin crew. "I assume the rest of you know how to do your jobs with respect?" The junior flight attendants nodded vigorously, terrified. "Good," Sabrina said. She looked at the empty Suite 1A. "I believe that seat is now vacant. Captain, let's go to London." But the drama wasn't over. Sabrina had removed the rot, but the flight to London is long, and Monica St. James was sitting in the galley, watching, waiting, and plotting her own kind of revenge. The flight was 7 hours. A lot can happen in the dark over the Atlantic. The cabin lights had been dimmed to a soft, indigo twilight. Regal Atlantic Flight 882 was cruising at 38,000 feet, somewhere over the dark, freezing expanse of the North Atlantic. Most of the passengers in first class were asleep, cocooned in their lay-flat beds, oblivious to the corporate coup that had just taken place. But Sabrina Jenkins was wide awake. She sat in Suite 1A, the glow of her laptop illuminating her face. She was reviewing the operational files of the division she had just impulse purchased. The deeper she dug into the financials of the JFK ground operations, the more her frown deepened. The numbers didn't add up. There were maintenance costs for the lounge that rivaled the GDP of a small country. There were consulting fees paid to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Something was rotting at the core of Regal Atlantic, and she suspected she was sitting just a few feet away from one of the architects. In the forward galley, separated from the cabin by a heavy curtain, Monica St. James was not reflecting on her sins. She was seething. Stripped of her blazer and forced to sit on the uncomfortable, retractable jump seat near the cockpit door, Monica was watching Sabrina through the crack in the curtain. The humiliation was burning a hole in her stomach. 7 hours. She had 7 hours to fix this before they landed in London, and she was handed over to HR. "Chloe," Monica hissed. A young flight attendant, barely 22 and looking terrified, stepped out of the business class section. "Yes, Monica. I mean, Ms. St. James." "Don't give me that look," Monica snapped, keeping her voice low. "Listen to me. That woman in 1A? She's not a CEO. She's a hacker. I've seen this before. She spoofs a confirmation code, causes a scene, and tries to extort the airline for free upgrades." "But," the captain said, Chloe whispered. "The captain is old and gullible," Monica lied smoothly. "He's confused. Look, I've texted the VP of Security on my personal satellite link. They are waiting for her in London. But we need to make sure she doesn't access the onboard server. If she hacks the Wi-Fi, she could steal passenger credit card info." Chloe's eyes went wide. "What do we do?" "We need to neutralize the threat," Monica said, her eyes glinting dangerously. "She asked for a chamomile tea, didn't she? To help her sleep?" "Yes, I was just making it." "Give it to me," Monica said. "Monica, I can't. Give it to me." Monica stood up. The authority was still there, the muscle memory of 10 years of tyranny. Chloe, intimidated and unsure, handed over the porcelain teapot. Monica turned her back to Chloe. From the pocket of her skirt, she produced 2 small blue pills, prescription sleeping aids she took for her own jet lag. She crushed them into the saucer and dissolved the powder into the steaming hot water. It wasn't poison. It wouldn't kill her. But it would knock Sabrina out cold. And once she was unconscious, Monica could unlock Sabrina's phone, using her Face ID while she slept, delete the emails, and perhaps plant a few mini bottles of vodka in her bag. When they landed, the narrative would be simple. The unruly passenger got drunk, passed out, and the firing was just a hallucination of an intoxicated woman. It was a desperate plan, but desperate people do dangerous things. "I'll deliver it," Monica said, putting on her best fake smile. She smoothed her skirt. She wasn't supposed to be working, but she knew the captain was locked in the cockpit and wouldn't see. Monica walked through the curtain, the tea tray balanced in her hand. She approached Suite 1A. "Miss Jenkins," Monica purred, her voice sickly sweet. "I thought I might offer a peace offering, a fresh pot of chamomile, brewed specifically for relaxation." Sabrina looked up from her laptop. She took off her reading glasses. She looked at the tea. Then she looked at Monica. Sabrina's instincts, honed by years in the cutthroat world of logistics and mergers, screamed danger. A woman who had treated her like garbage an hour ago was now serving her tea. "I didn't order tea from you, Monica," Sabrina said. "I ordered it from Chloe, and I thought I ordered you to stay in the jump seat." "I just want to help," Monica said, her hand trembling slightly as she set the tray down on Sabrina's table. "Please, I want to apologize." Drink. It will help you rest." Sabrina stared at the steam rising from the cup. She noticed the slight, powdery residue on the rim of the saucer. "You know," Sabrina said softly, "in business, when an adversary suddenly offers you a gift, you don't take it. You ask what they're hiding." "I'm not hiding anything," Monica said, a little too quickly. "Just drink it." Sabrina reached for the cup. Monica held her breath. Sabrina lifted the cup and then poured the entire contents onto the expensive carpet of the aisle. "What are you doing?" Monica shrieked, forgetting to whisper. "Testing a theory," Sabrina said. She used a napkin to dab the wet saucer, picking up a smear of the blue residue. She held it up to the reading light. "This isn't sugar, and it isn't honey." "What is it, Monica? Ambien? Xanax?" "You're crazy," Monica shouted, backing away. "It's sweetener." "We'll see," Sabrina said. "I'm bagging this napkin as evidence. Attempting to drug a passenger? That's not just a firing offense, Monica. That's a felony. That's prison time." Monica's face crumbled. The mask of arrogance fell away, leaving behind pure, unadulterated panic. "You don't understand," Monica cried, tears welling up. "You can't look at those files. You have to stop digging." Sabrina froze. "You have to stop digging." Sabrina looked at her laptop screen, then back at Monica. This wasn't about the seat. It wasn't about the hoodie. "What files, Monica?" Sabrina stood up, blocking the aisle. "I thought this was about you being a snob. But you're not trying to save your job. You're trying to hide something." Nothing," Monica stammered, realizing she had said too much. She tried to run back to the galley. "Sit down," Sabrina commanded. "No!" Monica lunged for the laptop on Sabrina's tray table, trying to slam it shut or knock it over. Sabrina caught her wrist in mid-air. Sabrina wasn't just a CEO. She grew up in a neighborhood where you learned to handle yourself, and she boxed 3 times a week to manage stress. She twisted Monica's arm behind her back, not enough to break it, but enough to immobilize her. "Chloe," Sabrina shouted, "get the restraints, now!" Chloe and another flight attendant rushed in, gasping at the scene. "She tried to destroy my computer," Sabrina said, breathing hard. "Restrain her in the jump seat, and get the captain. Tell him we have a code red situation, and tell him—" Sabrina paused, looking at the terrified Monica. "Tell him we need to check the cargo hold, manifest for the VIP packages Preston loaded." Monica went limp in Sabrina's grip. She knew it was over. 20 minutes later, the mood in the first-class cabin had shifted from luxury travel to a mobile interrogation room. The other passengers were awake now, peering over their partitions, sensing the gravity of the situation. Captain Miller stood in the aisle, looking grave. He held a satellite phone in one hand and a printed cargo manifest in the other. Monica St. James was zip-tied to the jump seat in the galley, sobbing quietly. Sabrina sat in her suite, her laptop open to a spreadsheet she had decrypted only moments ago. "Captain," Sabrina said, her voice steady, "I need you to verify something for me. Did Preston Sterling personally override the weight limit for 2 crates loaded into the forward hold? Designated as diplomatic mail?" Captain Miller looked at the manifest. He paled. "Yes. 2 crates. Marked for the Aurora Import Group. Preston signed off on them himself just before pushback. He claimed they were last-minute duty-free supplies." "They aren't duty-free supplies," Sabrina said. She turned the laptop so the captain could see. "I bought the ground operations division 3 hours ago," Sabrina explained. "When I got access to the server, I didn't just fire Preston. I ran a script to audit the inventory logs for the last 6 months. I noticed a pattern. Every Tuesday flight to London, the one Preston manages, and the one Monica directs has a discrepancy in weight. Sabrina pointed to a line on the screen. It's always exactly 50 kilograms heavier than listed, and it's always marked diplomatic to avoid customs scanning. "What is it?" Captain Miller asked, his voice a hush. "Diamonds," Sabrina said. A gasp went through the cabin. "Conflict diamonds," Sabrina corrected, "from a mine in Sierra Leone that was supposedly shut down years ago. They are being smuggled into the US, cut in New York, and then flown to London to be laundered into the European market. The Aurora Lounge isn't just a place for drinks. It's a handover point. The VIPs Preston was letting in, they were couriers. The riffraff he was keeping out? Anyone who might notice the exchange." Sabrina looked at Monica in the jump seat. "That's why you wouldn't let me in," Sabrina said. "It wasn't just racism, though that made it easier for you. It was fear. You saw a stranger you couldn't profile, someone who didn't fit the pattern, standing right next to your drop-off point. You told me to wait outside because you were in the middle of a transaction." Monica looked up, her mascara running down her face. They forced us," she whimpered. "The syndicate. They said they'd hurt my family." "Save it for the FBI," Sabrina said, cold. "But wait," Captain Miller said, wiping sweat from his brow. "If there are diamonds in the hold, and Preston isn't on the plane—" "Preston was trying to get on the plane to protect the shipment," Sabrina realized. "He knew that if I took over the company, I'd eventually find the audit trail. He needed to get to London to intercept the crates before my team could seize them." Sabrina stood up. The pieces of the puzzle had slammed together. "Captain, we have a problem." "What is it?" "Preston didn't just want to fly with us. When he realized he couldn't board, he made a call. I saw him on his phone as I walked down the jet bridge." Sabrina's eyes widened. "Who did he call?" the captain asked. "He called the receiving team in London," Sabrina said. "He told them the shipment is compromised. He told them I'm on board." The captain looked at his watch. "We land in 3 hours." "If the syndicate knows the game is up," Sabrina said, her voice dropping, "they won't meet us at the gate with a sign. They'll try to get those crates before we even taxi to the terminal, or worse." Sabrina grabbed her phone. She dialed Jonathan Harker again. "Sabrina?" Jonathan sounded exhausted. "It's 3 a.m. here. What is it now?" "Jonathan," Sabrina said, her voice cutting through the static. "Wake up the board and call Scotland Yard. I need you to lock down Heathrow Terminal 3. We are flying $1 billion in contraband, and the reception committee is going to be hostile." "What? Sabrina, are you serious?" "Deadly. And Jonathan? I'm going to need a bigger discount on that acquisition price. I just uncovered a federal smuggling ring." She hung up. Sabrina looked out the window at the black sky. The plane felt small now, a fragile bubble suspended in the air. "Captain," Sabrina said, "can this bird fly faster?" Captain Miller nodded, his jaw set. "I can push the throttles. We'll burn extra fuel, but we can shave 30 minutes off." "Do it," Sabrina said. "I want to be on the ground before Preston's friends have time to load their guns." "And Monica?" the captain asked. Sabrina looked at the woman who had tried to drug her. "Keep her tied up," Sabrina said. "She's our leverage. If they try anything on the ground, we trade her for our safety." Sabrina sat back down in Suite 1A. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She wasn't just a CEO. She was the commander of a high-altitude siege. The flight attendant, Chloe, timidly approached. "Ms. Jenkins, can I get you anything else? Safe to drink, I promise." Sabrina looked at the young woman and smiled tiredly. "Coffee," Sabrina said. "Black. And keep it coming. Nobody sleeps on this flight until we are parked at the gate." The engines roared louder as the captain pushed the throttle forward. The 777 surged through the night, racing toward a dawn that would bring either justice or chaos. The descent into London was a high-velocity blur. Captain Miller had pushed the 777 to its structural limits, buying them 30 crucial minutes. But as the sprawling lights of Heathrow emerged from the dawn mist, Sabrina Jenkins sat in the cockpit jump seat, her eyes fixed on the approach vector. "Tower! Regal, 880 or too heavy," Captain Miller broadcasted, his voice tight. "Requesting immediate priority landing. Runway 27R. "Cleared for 27R, the controller responded. "Proceed to Terminal 3, Gate 42. Authorities are notified." Sabrina keyed her mic, overriding the captain. "Negative, Tower. This is Sabrina Jenkins, Apex Actual. We are not going to Terminal 3. That terminal is compromised. The reception team for our illicit cargo is likely armed and waiting." "Say again, Apex Actual?" The controller sounded stunned. "Divert us to the North Apron. Hangar 6, Sabrina commanded, staring at the isolated maintenance bay she had purchased years ago. It was a fortress compared to the porous security of the passenger terminal. "I want armed response units at Hangar 6. Lock down Terminal 3. The plane banked sharply, the engines roaring as they veered away from the commercial gates. Below, Sabrina saw the flashing blue lights of emergency vehicles scrambling across the tarmac, racing to meet them at the new coordinates. When the massive aircraft finally rolled to a halt inside the cavernous hangar, the silence was deafening. Sabrina stood up, removing her headset. "Captain, keep the flight deck locked until I give the clear." She marched back to the galley. Monica St. James was still zip-tied to the jump seat, her face a mask of defeat. "End of the line, Monica," Sabrina said. She disarmed the door and cracked it open. Cold English air rushed in, mixed with the shouting of police officers. Dozens of SCO-19 tactical officers in black gear surrounded the plane. Detective Chief Inspector Graves stepped forward as Sabrina lowered the stairs. "Ms. Jenkins, the perimeter is secure," Graves barked. "The contraband is in the forward hold. 2 crates marked diplomatic," Sabrina instructed. "And here is your primary witness." She nodded to the officers, who stormed the plane, hauling a sobbing Monica out in cuffs. Jonathan Harker hurried up the stairs, looking shell-shocked. "Sabrina, I saw the manifest. It's $1 billion in conflict diamonds. You didn't just buy a division, you stopped a war chest." "I expect a discount on the acquisition price, Jonathan," she replied coolly. She checked her watch. 6:15 a.m. in London meant 1:15 a.m. in New York. "Now excuse me, I have one loose end to tie up." She dialed a number, thousands of miles away, in a dingy airport hotel bar in Queens. Preston Sterling was nursing his 4th vodka, drafting a lawsuit against Regal Atlantic on his phone. When it rang, he answered aggressively. "Who is this?" "Hello, Preston." The voice froze the blood in his veins. "Sabrina?" he whispered. "How?" "I own your file, Preston. I own the airline. And right now, I'm standing in Hangar 6 at Heathrow, looking at your duty-free crates." Preston dropped his glass. It shattered, the sound echoing in the empty bar. "No, Monica wouldn't. Monica is in custody. She told us everything," Sabrina lied, though the truth was inevitable. "The weight overrides, the schedule, your signature. It's over." I'll leave the country," Preston stammered, scrambling off his stool. "Look up at the TV, Preston." He looked. The bar television was flashing a breaking news banner. "International diamond ring smashed. Airline staff implicated." A grainy security photo of Preston from the lounge was plastered on the screen. "I told you," Sabrina's voice was ice. "You made me wait outside for 5 minutes, so I took everything you had. Karma doesn't wait in the hall." Preston heard the hotel bar doors burst open. He saw the reflection of FBI windbreakers in the mirror. Sabrina, please. Tell it to the judge. Click. Sabrina hung up as the agents tackled Preston to the floor. She stepped onto the London tarmac, adjusting her hoodie. She had a meeting in 2 hours, and she finally had time for a coffee. They say the clothes don't make the man, but in Preston Sterling's case, misjudging the clothes unmade his entire life. He saw a hoodie and sneakers, and assumed riff-raff. He didn't see the billionaire CEO, the logistics expert, or the woman who was tired of being told to know her place. Sabrina Jenkins didn't just get on that plane, she executed the most hostile corporate takeover in aviation history at 38,000 feet, dismantling a criminal empire before the in-flight movie was over. Preston Sterling is currently serving a 15-year federal sentence. Monica St. James is serving 10 in the UK. As for Sabrina, Apex Logistics now owns a majority stake in Regal Atlantic. And if you ever visit the Aurora Lounge at JFK, you'll notice the dress code policy has been removed from the door. Because the new boss knows that real power doesn't need to wear a suit. If you enjoyed this story of high-flying karma and ultimate revenge, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story about what happens when people mess with the wrong person. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that you should never, ever judge a book by its cover. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.